In this opinion here, why are kids getting dumber and dumber and dumber? And there are several reasons. Um, First of all, we took religion out of schools because you see, education and religion are one, and God has a specific interest in the citizens in the world being educated because education helps people to be easily manageable and even to be reached by God. And so when we throw religion out of school, we have made it more difficult for children to learn. Classes were larger when religion was acceptable in schools because God and the angels and the Holy Spirit were in the classroom and they were assisting the teacher in communicating to the students because each student has his own experience, but God knows it and he's able to associate the education with his experience. And so the person got a better understanding of the class. Now, with God out of the picture, even if you come on a one-on-one level, it's hard for a teacher to be able to impart effectively to a student. Then also we have people are living kind of undisciplined and kind of crazy lives. They're doing drugs and other health rules they're violating significantly. Mothers are not having prenatal care. They're smoking, they're drinking, they're staying up late. They don't even care about nothing. And then when it's time for baby to born, and they're getting serious. So these children are being born with sort of arrested development. Then, of course, with medical technology, many of them want to know what sex is the child. So they go and expose the fetus to this ultrasound. And in my opinion, I think this is an intrusion into this quietude that this fetus was developing in. And that sudden burst of activity, noise, and vibration, etc., causes a reaction. And perhaps it affects certain developments that might have been happening at that time. Many times it's mental, whatever. Then in the past, they came up with this idea that rote learning is bad. You don't need to memorize nothing. And this fit into the position later of you don't need to know the stuff, just know where to find it. Now, these two strategies combined are significantly responsible for the problems we have in today in education. I know that if you want to advance into some graduate math, you'll have to have competent math in elementary and high school and college and so on. When you know the tables, times tables, it makes it so easier to not be afraid of numbers. But they introduce them to computers and calculators early, hoping that it's going to assist. I mean, it's accurate, but it doesn't give one the mental attitude and ability to function in a mathematical world. And so many things are predicates for math, science, medicine, engineering, almost every walk of life. You have to be able to count your money and so on. Certain jobs require calculations, etc. Then who knows who has the ability to progress? People who have resources and other understanding abilities will be able to get their children into a situation that looks as if they're brilliant. They do a lot of testing and they do a lot of preparation and so on. Um, as soon as they're born, they start them up with computers and a whole bunch of other rich environmental stimuli. But do these tests, these standardized tests, show any serious ability? I'm not sure, because as long as you um, can be prepared, for this, then I'm not sure if it really shows. The one who's unprepared, had that person had the same opportunity, then perhaps it would come back to square one again. Um, I think tests are really trying to see whether a person has a complete slate of resources in the brain. But it's very hard for them to do that since you could manipulate it. If you're in the right school, the teachers could change the test score and let you look like you've done well. If you're white or Asian, you're also expected to do well. And if you're black, you're supposed to fail and so on. And they come with theories about the size of the brain and all this kind of stuff. When this is just showing folks aren't familiar with history and everything else. Because at one time, black people were the currency. Ethiopia, Egypt, they were synonymous. And there's where learning started. They call it the cradle of civilization. But I'll say that it's the beginning of learning. Uh, Africans and black people started agriculture and astronomy and even some evil, which it continues up to today. They like their evil, right? But they even take the evil and the good and they want to give credit to the blacks. And this is a part of the racism. This is a part of the hatred that exists amongst races because blacks have done so well that these folks can't even catch up. And they've surpassed them, but still they have that complex of having had to be tutored by these folks. And then, of course, Asia came on, and then Europe came on last. And so now Europe is the powerhouse. The standard is European. If you don't look like a European and so on, you're supposed to not be smart. But then they've given deference to the Asians because they're saying Asians are smarter. And it's just that they study harder. They've taken the development that Europe and North America have created, invented, and took it to the next level, or are brilliant on that same sort of information. They copy it, they do a variety of things. But today, with so many different ways of distraction and ways of making things easy, folks are not being as smart as they could have been, and compared to like 25 years ago or so, I think that people are becoming dumber. In Puerto Rico and across the United States, you find that the television shows, they started these kids with Sesame Street and other learning, teaching, acculturating sort of children's program where they use a lot of Muppets and puppets and a variety of things that unqualify these kids to school because Sesame Street is so rich and so dynamic and it's so specialized that very rarely you can duplicate that sort of environment in class. And children who started watching Sesame Street definitely do have an advantage over those who didn't. But with encouragement and love and so on, those who weren't exposed to the Sesame Street type of stimuli, will catch up with those kids in a year or two and surpass them because they're getting bored. They were into this visual thing, and the classroom is not as dynamic. The teachers are not as have the resources, and it's a different environment. It's like a whole class with a slew of different problems and so on. And sometimes by the time you get these kids seated, the class is over. But some way, somehow, these shows weren't necessarily seriously interested in the children progression. It is more like tying them up and putting them in a spin and making them be lost. Because when you go to middle school and high school to teach, these kids are tired. They're burnt out. I mean, some of them are smoking and doing some serious drugs, drinking and so on. They don't study at all. But it seems to me that the early experiences they've had with Sesame Street and other things have burnt them out. And so here we have today, again, with No Child Left Behind, the Bush strategy. And superficially thinking, you know that that's just nuts. There's God said He gave people talents. One got one, next one got two, and the other one got four, something like that. And the one who had one, he just went and hid it. He didn't try to improve it. So in the classroom, you have people with different levels of abilities. And to think that all could be able to perform at the same level is just foolhardy. Because those who have the extraordinary abilities can be kept back for these who don't have any abilities at all. Some people have to have so much intervention. They have to have a nurse, psychologists, medications, all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's so much money to spend to give this child an education. When they graduate from school, they can't even function. They go on home and sit down at home and just getting a check. And I agree that people should have a basic education so they could function and be able to access the culture. But a person that needs extraordinary intervention, saying they're going to get a doctorate, is just a waste of time. Because they're going to use now the American with Disability Act, get into a serious government position that requires serious ability and so on. And the national security of the nation, you would put it in at risk. George Bush was the president, right? And so on. And look what happened under his reign. You were different. the whole world would have been different today. And so we have to make a decision. Some kids will get nowhere, and we have to be fair. Not because they're white, they're supposed to go somewhere, and blacks to go nowhere. Across the board, if this person doesn't have the ability, very objectively, tell them, look, there's another aspect of where if you don't pick corn or tomatoes or something, we leave that to the Mexicans. We have so many citizens here who hang around the corners and follow the jails. Should be picking the corn and the tomatoes because some way, somehow they fail in the system of getting that education, or they got it and it was so trivial. This guy got a doctorate, don't know, this smoking with some girls and boys and so on, got arrested, some felonies, and he's dead. So I think that we need to look at this thing about brilliance and dumbness and morons seriously.